What if, tomorrow, Europe made the ultimate strategic decision? The national flags of its armies are lowered for the last time. The German Bundeswehr, the French Armée de Terre, the Italian Esercito, all dissolved into history. In their place, one institution, the European Army, a single unified force answering to Brussels. On paper, it is a geopolitical masterstroke, a continent finally matching its economic weight with military power. A force of over 1.5 million active personnel, a consolidated defense budget approaching 300 billion euros, streamlined command, eliminated redundancies, a singular strategic vision. The dream of a sovereign Europe, secured not by treaties, but by sheer indivisible force. But this is not a paper exercise. We deal in reality. And the moment this force moves from proposal to practice, the fractures begin. The first fracture is language. An army runs on instant, unambiguous communication. In a trench, in a cockpit, on an encrypted naval channel. Does the European army operate in English? France immediately rejects this as Anglo-Saxon cultural dominance. Germany may pragmatically accept, but the political cost is immense. Do we create a new hybrid military jargon? The delay in transmitting a single fire order, the fatal misinterpretation of a single word? These are not bureaucratic concerns. They are issues of life, death, and mission failure. The second fracture is chain of command. Who leads? Is it a rotating generalship based on nationality? A recipe for operational whiplash every few years? Or is it a meritocracy, which would inevitably see officers from larger, more experienced military traditions dominating the highest ranks? Will a Greek colonel willingly take orders from a Swedish general during a crisis in the Eastern Mediterranean? Will Polish units feel assured under a Spanish commander on the border with Belarus? National trust is absent. Military cohesion is built on decades, even centuries, of shared tradition. This force has none. Then comes procurement. The eternal graveyard of European defense projects. A French president will insist the new fighter jet's engine is built in Toulouse. The Italian defense minister will demand final assembly in Naples. German MPs will lobby for the radar systems to come from a Stuttgart-based firm. What should be a competitive, streamlined process to build the world's most advanced tank becomes a political subsidy program, splitting production across a dozen nations. The result is not a lean, lethal machine, but a compromised, over-budget, and delayed platform before it even rolls onto the parade ground. The Eurofighter and the A400M transport plane are cautionary tales on a minor scale. Imagine that failure magnified across the entire arsenal of a continent. But let us assume these hurdles are overcome. The European army stands. It is day one of its first major deployment. A crisis erupts on Europe's eastern flank. A deliberate hybrid attack on a Baltic member state. Cyber attacks, special forces in unmarked uniforms, local paramilitary unrest. The order to respond must come from Brussels. But Brussels is not a war room. It is a committee, 27 flags around a table. Immediate, unanimous consensus is a fantasy. Hungary questions the intelligence. Cyprus, wary of alienating other powers, calls for delay. Austria cites its neutrality laws. For 72 critical hours, the European army is paralyzed. Not by the enemy, but by its own political master. By the time a fragile majority votes to authorize action, the strategic window has closed. The fait accompli is established. The army, for all its might, was irrelevant. This is the central fatal flaw. An army is not just a collection of soldiers and tanks. It is the sharp, swift instrument of a single political will. Europe has 27 political wills. In peacetime, this is manageable. In crisis, it is a blueprint for indecision and catastrophic failure. The soldier on the ground needs to know his orders are clear. His chain of command is solid, and his political leadership has his back. In the European army, he has none of these. He has a debate. And in warfare, you cannot debate the artillery barrage that has just begun. So we witness the European army's first major test end in humiliating political paralysis. The consequence is immediate and irreversible. The renationalization of security. Trust in the central command shatters. Wealthier nations, perceiving existential threat, begin covertly rebuilding their own national command structures. They establish elite, nationally loyal units under the guise of special forces or territorial guards. The The unified budget is still collected, but it is now a slush fund picked apart by national interests for pet projects that benefit their own quiet reconstitution. The poorer member states realize a grim truth. In a true existential crisis, the European army's response will be dictated by the core interests of its largest paymasters, France and Germany. Their specific security concerns are now secondary. A border incident in the Balkans may not trigger the full response a national army would provide. This creates a hierarchy of security within the Union, a two-tier Europe of those who are truly defended and those who are merely insured. The solidarity clause becomes a matter of negotiation, not obligation. Now observe the external reaction. The United States begins a calculated pivot. NATO, seeing its European pillar merge into a single, unpredictable entity, starts to unravel. Washington engages in bilateral deals with individual nations, bypassing Brussels entirely, further fragmenting the European defense landscape from the outside. To the east, rivals like Russia do not see a formidable new giant. They see a complex, slow-moving bureaucracy. Their entire hybrid warfare playbook is designed to exploit precisely this kind of institutional indecision. They would probe, test, and manipulate the political fractures within the European command, confident that any response would be slow, diluted, and politically divisive. Within a decade, the grand project reaches its inevitable, quiet end. Not with a dramatic collapse, but with a creeping obsolescence. The European army still exists on paper. It holds joint exercises, it manages some common assets. But the real military power has silently drifted back to the capitals. Paris has reconsolidated its force projection command. Berlin has rebuilt a functional, standalone operational headquarters in secret. Warsaw has its own large national guard. The experiment has proven that you can standardize a rifle cartridge, but you cannot standardize political will. You can merge budgets, but you cannot merge centuries of divergent strategic culture. The final takeaway is not about European weakness, but about the fundamental nature of power. Power is not just about mass and money. It is about the speed and clarity of decision-making. It is about the unbreakable link between the soldier and the sovereign. It is about unity of purpose. Europe possesses aggregate power, but it remains strategically fragmented. A single army is a symptom of a single political will, and Europe, for all its union, is a continent of nations. The limit of the European army was never in its tanks or its troops. It was in its council room, where 27 voices debated, while the world does not wait for a consensus. For more analysis that separates geopolitical fantasy from reality, consider subscribing. This is Think Cell.